Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So as you have already seen the thumbnail, today we are going to create a simple project where we can see a live example of how we can integrate Spring Boot with JPA, Hibernate and PostgreSQL, right? So this is the application that I have created. So first let me navigate through this application and then we will talk or see how we can create it from scratch. Alright, so let's first talk about the project structure. So I'm using Maven here and Java 11. Other than that, in source I have this Java folder. Here I have three packages, which is controller, entity and repository, right? So in controller I have this controller which will help me navigate through my request mappings or mappings, and through entity I can control what kind or how many types of data that I want to store in the database. So I have repository so that I can actually insert or update the data into the database. So this is what here we have. Inside resources, we have to create a template. So I forgot to add one more thing. We are also using ThymeLeaf here. So with these ThymeLeaf, I have these three templates or simple HTML files. And in application.properties, we have to make these changes. So yeah, this is pretty much it. And now let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so as you can see, this is pretty much what we have in user details. So I have kept it really simple because I didn't want to engage more on beautifying the page, but rather on the logic part or the backend part of this application, right? So let's try to add a simple user. So before we do that, as I said, we are using Postgres here. So right now you can see that there is no data. So when I click on save, it should persist this data. So let's see if it is working. So it says successfully created user. Now let's see. So yeah, here we can see that the data got inserted. So that's good, right? So one more thing is that I haven't added any kind of logic where we can differentiate if the insertion was successful or not. This is just a simple page which is being returned when we have the insertion. Whether it is successful or not, this is going to get displayed. So this is not a kind of a verification where if you see this, you know that okay, the user was successfully created, but you have to do this query. I just wanted it to be simple, like I said before. So that's why there is not much kind of a functionality, but rather a setup where you can start from, right? Then you can improve it more and more. So now let's see the project generation, and then we will work on the logic. Alright, so now let's start with the project generation. So here we have something by default, which I'm not going to change. And yeah, this is the URL that you have to go through. So here I'm not going to change much, but the artifact name, let's name it Spring Boot Postgres, right? So yeah, that's it. Now we have to add dependency. So what dependency would we need? So first thing is we need web, so that we can have request mappings or mappings. Then we need JPA to be enabled, right? So that is that. Now we are using Postgres, so we need a Postgres driver. And then we need ThymeLeaf because we are using ThymeLeaf here. And I hope I'm not missing anything here, but yeah, if we are, then we can add like this or by using pom.xml. But yeah, I'm thinking we need DevTools also. And yeah, we are pretty much good. So now let's generate this project, or you can explore to see if this is what you needed. So here you can see the project structure. Also you can click on pom.xml to see if you have the required dependencies. If you have missed, you can close and then add again. So I don't have anything missed till now, so I will just click on generate, right? So now I just have to unzip this and import this into my IntelliJ. So let's do that. Alright, so here you can see that I have got the project. So every dependency is downloaded also. If you want to see, you can click on this external libraries, and here you can see each and every dependency that we need. So one thing to notice that we have Hibernate dependency also, because by default JPA uses that. So I told before in the start of the video that we are using Postgres here. So if you are learning Postgres from scratch, there is not much difference between MySQL, Oracle, and PostgreSQL, because they all are RDBMS, right? So you just have to install this Postgres software from their official website. Afterwards, you just have to open this pgadmin, and through that you are going to see a sample database, which is going to be your Postgres. That is by default. So I didn't use this. I created my own database test. So to do that, you can just right click on databases and then click on create and then database. It will allow you to create a database. Afterwards, I needed to create a new table. So again, we have two options, right? So first option is that you scroll down inside your test to find out the schemas, public, and then you will find tables. So here you can either right click and then click on create table. So it will allow you to create a table by user interface, or you can simply create a table using create query that we used to do in MySQL or Oracle if you had any kind of exposure there. So, right, so there are these two ways that you can try. I don't know why this is not going away, but yeah, this is pretty much it. When you create the table, here you can see that we have these columns. We have user ID, which is our primary key. We have username, which is the unique name, which we have email, and then ID, right? So these are the pretty much columns that we need to insert any kind of data. But point is that I have kept it really simple, so that's why here we have a lot less columns, right? So now we have the setup ready in terms of database. Now let's see what we have to do in our code. So here first thing first is that we have to connect to our database, right? So for that we have to go to our application.properties. So here what do we need? We need data source, right? So here we have again two options. Either we can enable this through our properties file, or we can create a configuration for this data source. But I'm going to prefer this way because I'm comfortable with this way. So here what we need is we need few things which are kind of a prerequisite to connect to the database, right? So first is our URL, right? Let me copy this. Second is our username, and the last one is password, right? So username is what we have created when we were installing Postgres. So you need to remember that if you have chosen anything other than default one. So by default the name is Postgres, and the password that you have to like put on. So I have kept it simple as in password. Now for the URL, we need JDBC, which is like really common. Then we need the server, right? Like which server we need to connect. So I'm using first of all I am using Postgres, right? Now I need to provide the server where my database is installed. So in this case I have localhost, and then I need to provide the port where this database is running. So by default the port is 5432, and then I need to provide the database which I'm using inside pg4 admin. So here you can see that pgadmin 4 we have two databases. So I need to provide this information, like which database to use, where the information should be persisted. So that you can do that by just doing this. So I hope this is visible. If not, right, so this will allow me to connect to the database. So that these are the three requirements for that. Now we need one more thing. Okay, so this here pretty much says everything, and this is what or how we are actually connecting or updating the values to the database. So JPA uses Hibernate to update or pass on the queries to the database. So here when we say update, it means that it is only going to update whenever it is necessary, right? So it is not going to do each and every time. So that's why we have this. Now we are all done with our application.properties. So now let's create our entity class. All right, so first I need a package. So I will just right click here, click on new package, and let's say entity. Right, so now I need to create a class. So here I will name this user. So first thing first is that I have to declare this as an entity so that it can later on be identified as a thing or an object to persist, right? One more thing that I can do here is to specify which table it is going to use. Right. All right, so these are done. Now I just need to fill on the columns. So we know that these are the columns we have. So I'm just going to create variables and then getter and setter for these. So first is right, then we have username, and then we have email. Right, now I need to assign this as an ID and then generated value, and here I'm going to keep this at auto. All right, good enough. Now I just need to create getters and setters for these. All right, so good enough. Now what we need to do is we need a repository, right? So for that, again, let's create a new package. Now we need an interface. So this interface is going to do each and everything for me, but by default I'm going to use JPA functionality. So that's why I need to extend another interface, which is JPA repository. So here we can provide the type of object. So this is going to be my user, and the type of ID that I'm going to hold. So user is this one, right? And nothing else we have to do here, right? So this is done. Now what we need is we need a controller. So let's create a new package. I added extra dot. Right, so now let's create a controller, and this is going to be a class. So let's say user controller. Let's say, or let Spring identify that this is a controller. Right, so now we are coming to the most important part, which is to have mappings. So first mapping is going to be our home page. So we can say home page. So this home page is going to return a page, right? And then we need something to save the data. So let's say save user, and then it is again going to return a certain page, right? So here this is going to be our get mapping, and this is going to be mapped with, and then we need this one to be post mapping, because it is saving the data, right? So now this is done. Now we need repository instance also. So here let's create private user repository, let's say up, or let's say repo, and let's auto wire this. Right, so now what we need is we need to create pages. So first is going to be our home page. So let's say save, or yeah, we can say home. Yeah, that sounds good. Right, so we got this data already generated for us. So now we need two input text and a button, right? So first we can add on a heading, right? Let's say create. Now we need input, so the type is going to be, so this is going to be our username, so it is going to be text, and let's say placeholder, which is going to be so here the type is going to be email. Let's add break, and then we need a button type submit. So here let's say save, or let's say create. Save sounds good. Now we need all this inside a form. Right. All right. So now here comes the big part, which is how will TimeLeaf enable us to contact to the backend. Like, I want this form, whenever it is going to be submitted, it should go back to the controller, right? So here for that we need action, and then action has to be of a certain type, which we call as method. It can either be get or post. So it is going to be post because we are saving or persisting the data. Now these inputs have to be mapped to our user, right? So for that, what we need to do is first we have to use TimeLeaf. So for that, I just have to do this. So here I'm using the tags, so that's why I need to enable this. Now I can use TimeLeaf tags, which will start with the prefix th. So here I can say th action, and method doesn't need to be, but the important thing is that we are mapping these inputs to an object. So for that I need something like this, right? So here I need to provide which object. So now I have provided that I'm going to map with this object these information, but this has to come through when I'm returning this page, right? So I have to remember that in my user controller I'm here returning the page home, and I haven't mapped or passed on this object. So for that I'm going to use model here. So model is going to help me with this. I just have to do model dot add attribute, and here I can do the name, which is going to be user, and then I will pass on the object of user. Let's import this. All right, so here this user is going to be get mapped, and then I can use the information which I'm going to save here, right? Now let's add action here. All right, so this is done. Now I need fields. All right, so fields are also done. So let me summarize what we did. We first added this so that we can actually use tags of TimeLeaf. Now we are using it. We have provided the action. here we have provided the object through which it is going to map these values which we are going to provide. Then we have this th field, which are the actual fields of our object which is going to get mapped, right? And then we have this button which is type submit, so it is going to help me reach this data towards my controller, which is going to be this one, right? So when it comes to this controller, I need to get this user and then I have to save it. So for that I have a method repo.save. So here I just have to do user, and now JPA and Hibernate are going to save this for me. So here either I can return back the home page, or I can create a page saying that the data got created successfully, right? So but here what you need to do is you need to find out if this operation was successful or not. So if it is not successful, then return back to the page home with the error message, or create a new page of that error holding page, and then return that page back. If the operation is successful, then you should return some kind of a success message, so that no one has to look at the backend to see if the data was persisted, right? So this can be done easily. It's not a big task, but for now I'm just going to return, or let's not return anything. I'll just keep this void, right? So yeah, we are good to go. Now let's run this and see if it is working. So let me open my right click, run. All right, so as you can see here, the application is running now on port 8080. So now let's see. All right, so we got the form. Now first check if we have the information. Okay, we did it before, so yeah, it must be having that. So now let's add something new. So let's say test and test@gmail.com. hit save. All right, so we got something. All right, so we are seeing this error because we don't have a view. So here you can see that we are just saving it and not giving back any kind of a view, right? So that's what's happening here. But if you see if the data is getting stored, so you can see that here we got the data. So now let's either you can modify this code to have a good kind of a UI interface, right? Or either you can just change this. Alright, so once you change this to a string, like when you throw a page back after doing some kind of a computation, then like I did this, I added a dummy and dummy@gmail.com, and then I click on save. It returned me this page back. Also you can see that the data got persisted, so it's working fine. So this is a kind of an integration or a start with which you can start working on your project, because this is kind of a configuration thing that I have made. If you want more, if you want this application to be more full-fledged, to see what kind of customization we can do to have this full-fledged front-end functionality and full-fledged back-end functionality, then let me know. I can make more videos here on this very same project. If not, then this is it for this video. I hope I will meet you again in some another video. Till then, have a good day, stay safe, and bye-bye.